Peridiam. The hardest part for me was the fact that it took you this long to reach this top 5 that I could have spent with Amanda in the previous video. Well, that's not how you bury a lead. Ladies and gents internet, welcome to the lowest echelon. Top 5 worst or bottom 5 best final tribal council performances in Survivor. Recently I talked about 10 times Survivor players absolutely bombed a final tribal, but most if not all of those players were never going to win anyway. Can't say the same for this group. And even though what we saw in the last vid was bad, I think there's a special place for players who could have won or maybe would have won if not for their final tribal performance. And that place is in this top 5. Anyway, number 5. No, wait, honorable mentions. 2 names. First, Susie and Gabon, not so much for what she says, although to be honest, had she said yes to surgically removing her vocal cords, she may have won, but more so to the fact that she just didn't beat Bob. A guy who said that he never made a single decision all season that was purely his own, which isn't even true. Second, it is poetic I include this person at the top of this video. Spoilers for Australian Survivor Season 1 from 2016. I'm gonna be talking about the runner up. I see this player's name a lot, but I think their performance is a tad bit overstated. It's not good, but even then Lee manages to give a good answer to Nick's speech against him, and I think had Lee owned his game more, he maybe could have garnered a few more votes. And then of course Christie just absolutely bulldozed him, so it goes both ways.
When I use those words, trust, loyalty and respect, I set myself up for failure. I honestly did.
You seriously did, Lee.
I did.
You seriously did.
But I tried as hard as I possibly could within the realm of Survivor to do that, because that's what I wanted to do, that I wanted to make my boys proud, and that's all.
Good answer. Thank you. I appreciate that. Well done, both of you.
The 5th worst final tribal council performance goes to Colby from Season 2, the Australian Outback, and there's a lot of ways we can approach Colby's performance here. First, Colby should have had the upper hand going into this, winning 5 immunities, a tour de force in the early days of the game. That is still the record to this day. But second, and more importantly, Colby didn't have the heart to fight for the win. Contrast this with Tina, who did. Tina clearly outwitted Colby here, as she gave the jury a strong reason to vote for her. This show is a game, and she played it. She utilized a strategy to be where she was. 2 of the votes she received were because Colby failed to articulate his strategy, meanwhile she did the opposite. Colby opened his speech by saying he wasn't a master at anything, he was just kinda pretty good all around. Not any better than Tina. And yeah, Colby was playing to be perceived as a good guy in front of America, and he knew America probably didn't love the strategy part so much at the time, part of the reason he chose Tina over Keith, but Tina clearly knew the jury better and leaned into this aspect, whereas Colby shied away from promoting himself. Colby said that he had his head in the game from day one, but then when asked about his least proud moment, a question he could have used to garner respect from a juror, he went on to say it was how he didn't respect the land on day 42. Even if that's the truth, there's this yin and yang to Colby's performance. He said he had his head in the game all season, but then when it came time to giving a closing statement, he literally doesn't give one. He says he has nothing to say. Colby, that is your last opportunity to play the game. Meanwhile, Tina talks all about the fundamental nature of Survivor as a game and why strategy, particularly hers, should be respected. And that wins her the votes when the pen touches parchment.
Well, I guess we're supposed to make a spiel here about why we deserve the $1 million or why I deserve it over Tina, and I don't know that I do. I don't think I was necessarily the best at anything, and I don't think I beat Tina in strategy or any elements of the game.
I'm gonna give you guys both a chance to address them one last time. Colby, last words.
Not a lack of respect to anyone, but I don't have any.
I kind of hope nobody finds any of these top 5 shocking, because number 4 is a well-known and well-regarded losing finalist who also went on to find further success beyond this performance, like in the very next episode, and that is Boston Rob on Season 8 All-Stars. The underlying adjective to describe Rob here at this final tribal council is meek, submissive, pretty much nothing like what we'd seen up to this point. And his performance reminds me a little bit of what happened to Katie and Palau, where early in the tribal, Greg, or in Rob's case, Lex, walks up and just bodies Rob into the nether realm. Rob is floored by Lex's speech and crumbles into dust because he felt it and he internalized it, and I think he kind of agreed with it in the moment too. When Kathy says that Rob was killing friendships, it becomes apparent to Rob how he has been playing the game. His perspective shifts on himself and he's not happy with the reflection.
Competitively.
Excuse me?
Competitively.
Rob personifies a guilty puppy. He believes that he's done wrong and he's keeping his head down out of shame. He has no pride to exude, no accomplishments to champion, despite reaching the final two with his new girlfriend in a season full of returning players. When Tom asks him why he should vote for Rob, Rob attempts to salvage dignity by guilting Tom into thinking Tom is in the wrong. But Rob, man, you can't do that even if you're right. The way Rob tells Tom that we both know what happened is really missing the entire point of the question. Rob doesn't need to salvage his dignity, just answer the question. Amber has the same question and she comes up with a very logical answer despite being Rob's partner in crime, and more power to her. Rob's approach is so off the mark. Ultimately, Rob's closing remarks say everything for why he's in this top 5. He gives a sweeping apology to everyone, stumbles over his words. Long time though, haven't I? By the end of this performance and this season, Rob has become his own worst enemy.
I'm really having a tough time even finding words, to tell you the truth. I'm fumbling over all my answers. I had fun, and I'm sorry. That's all I have to say, really.
Number 3. Oh my heck, Nalia from season 4, Marquesas, pops up at number 3, and there's not as much to say about her performance as there was with the previous two, and yet that's kind of bad in and of itself. The biggest problem with Nalia's performance is that she never owns her big decision to turn on the Rotu 4 and instead work with Sean and V. The Rotu 4 were bitter and disappointed that Nalia would let a Maramu squeak by, but they weren't so bitter as to not consider voting for her. But Nalia went on to say that her biggest regret was not going forward with some of the Rotus. In essence, that she made that decision to turn on them and then regretted it, and clearly did little else afterward. To make matters worse, she repeatedly states that she didn't start playing the game until day 24. Chris Underwood is shaking. And it was only when she made the final 9 flip that she got her head in the game. I think Nalia was trying to paint this remark in a good light, saying she was being an honest, good, loyal person up to that point, but she had to do what she had to do to get ahead. The problem is that, yeah, saying you began playing the game on day 24 is not a good look considering the jurors would all say they began playing on day 1. Nalia repeats this sentiment in her closing words and says that a lot of her success was just luck, but when you couple that with her naive demeanor and her answers that lacked any sort of bite, it's understandable why this hungry jury wasn't feeling satiated. All John needed from Nalia to vote for her was for her to say, "I gotcha, I'm sorry, but I gotcha." But she was too sweet a pea to ever go that far.
I honestly truly feel like everybody here would deserve $1 million. I think it's luck that I'm up here right now. I want you guys to know towards the end, day 24, I did start having to play the game.
This was an unbelievably hard decision. I hoped Nalia would really come forward and tell me, sorry, I betrayed you, I lied to you. But that didn't happen.
Number 2. Only the penitent man shall pass. Sorry, let me rephrase that. Only the penitent men shall pass when Coach is on the jury. Unfortunately for number 2, Coach was not on the jury, but is instead Coach himself. Season 23, South Pacific, we see Coach lose a 6-3-0 vote to Sophie after he basically crumbles very similarly to Boston Rob in All-Stars. Much like other losing finalists, Coach starts the final tribal leading with an uplifting tone. He speaks on his evolution, subverting expectations as he's not just Coach the character, but Coach the player. And this time he led with respect and compassion. But I don't know about that. The jury had more to say on this as Ozzy starts off by questioning Coach and his honor. If Coach really wanted to fulfill his promises, he would have taken Ozzy to the finals. And Coach admits that he broke that promise. He wasn't being honorable. Coach then apologizes to a heated Rick for stabbing him in the back, and then Coach keeps the apology tour going by apologizing to Brandon for doing the same thing. Going so far as to say that Brandon should also be in the final 3. We're running out of space here, Coach. Along the way, there are other little snipes, such as Whitney saying Coach ruled with fear through religion. It was kind of creepy, and after so many apologies, Cochran steps up and lends Coach a hand. But Coach crashes and burns here despite everything that came before it, as he openly admits His game was a big mess of broken promises and dishonor, and he didn't know how to get out of it. He tried to please everyone and instead just made everyone angry. And kind of like Rob, Coach ends his performance by proclaiming he is a terrible strategist. He is not the kind of person built to excel at this game. And given Cochran was just trying to lend him a hand, I think it's fair to say with this response that Coach was right. He was so down on himself, so caught up in his own head, and for good reason, and his house of cards totally collapsed in one fell swoop. Also, Sophie then swooped in and took the credit for all of his strategy.
I tried and I fell short. I stabbed a lot of you in the back, and I'm sorry that I did what I did to get here. And as I have proven from day one since I've been on Survivor, I'm a terrible strategist. I'm just not that kind of person.
I think it's probably my fault because I was his strategist, so.
Well, I was his original. Sophie and I really did make a lot.
Number 1. Basically, deja vu of bad final tribal council performances. Number 1 goes to, you guys know what I'm about to say, Amanda Kimmel for her performance on Survivor China, but then also doubling down with Survivor Micronesia. It is widely known Amanda is not the best at final tribals, and for good reason. She was a contender to win both seasons and instead lost both back to back. Despite Amanda being number 1 on this list, I think she's a strong player, and this right here is her biggest weakness. She very clearly lacks the ability to go for the jugular, instead playing passively with every juror interaction. Every question lobbed her way is met with either sorrow, despair, uncertainty, or sometimes a bit of trembling conviction. I don't want to take that away from her. Sometimes she does give decent answers, and I think that her performance isn't as much of a crash and burn like the other people we talked about. But none of her answers are ever very punchy or sold all that well, and when you're sitting next to Todd or Parvati or really anyone, you gotta step it up. Her opening statement in China isn't so bad, but it ends with the usual apology tour that all these bad tribal performances tend to have. She gets into a confusing bout of wordplay with Jean Robert where she ultimately admits that she went back on her word, but it took a while for her to fully admit that, losing some respect from JR. She takes credit for the James blindside, which is good, but then when confronted by Jamie about why Todd shouldn't win, Amanda loses a verbal sparring match against Todd when she says, if Todd was so good, why did he have to lie so much? But then it becomes readily apparent that she also lied so much because they worked in tandem, and she opened her performance by apologizing to half the jury for her lies. Todd asserts he had to do the dirty work and look like the bad guy. Amanda is just as culpable, yet seems unsure which side of this moral dilemma to land on. Denise, the lunch lady, even calls Amanda's blurry ass out for this honorable mentality.
There are some things I'm not proud of that I've done. You know, I voted for some people that didn't think that I was going to vote for them. I am sorry if I hurt your feelings, and I really respect playing with all of you. So honestly, it was a very, very hard decision for me. It's not one I'm proud of, and I am sorry for lying to you.
So you lied to me. First you're saying you broke your word to me, now you're saying you lied to me.
No,
what happened
I broke the word to you. I didn't lie to you. I did not want to put your name down.
Amanda has lied, even though she said that I don't lie, I'm not going to lie, I'm an honorable person. You have lied.
And while I don't think that her Micronesia final tribal in the very next season is as bad as China, we see a similar performance repeat itself where Amanda gets into a tongue twister of a bad answer with Sari, who's simply trying to understand why Amanda took Parvati over her. Amanda's answer falls way short as she trips over her explanations for her strategic moves, instead unintentionally insulting Sari. She also does get dragged by the women, called a zombie, the glossed over doe eyes. To me, Amanda always seems a bit sad at her final tribals. There's never much vigor in her tone, conviction in her answers. Parvati answers like it's a boxing ring. Todd punches like he's in a fight for his life. Perhaps not everyone is built to be a public speaker, and that's okay, but then perhaps that's a part of the game that you need to consider if you're not one of those people. Also, probably doesn't help to have Ozzy in your corner being incredibly cringe.
Being that you had the decision to make, tell me and the jury why Parvati deserves $1 million more than I do.
Parvati played a very aggressive, bold game, and I respect that about her.
So in saying that, are you saying you don't respect my game?
No, I respect your game as well. I think Parvati made bolder decisions in this game
than I did.
Yes.
So those are my top 5 worst final tribal council performances in Survivor, at least for players who stood a chance. I do think there's something worse about these ones than the ones who bombed in the previous video, given all 5 of these players could have been winners, but they dropped the ball at the 11th hour, and I think that cuts deeper. Survivor as a game is so subjective, and worst is just as tricky to define as best, but in the end, this is where I'm at. So let me know, do you guys agree? Is there anyone I've missed? Either way, a huge thank you to my patrons for not dropping the ball at the 11th hour. 'Tis but a scratch. Don't forget, on your way out, to take a public speaking class or two, or just watch a YouTube video, I guess. And I will see you in the next one, once I check in on our lovebird.